Hey there, I'm Thea Dudley, also known as the Credit Overlord, and welcome to LBM Talks Credit. We are the only podcast that talks trade credit in the lumber and building material space. Never miss an episode, stay tuned, and we're glad you're here. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of LBM Talks Credit. I am Thea Dudley, your host, and I'm happy to be back with you guys again. Now, we're talking about important things in trade credit that I enjoy talking about, and based on some conversations with other credit people in our industry, apparently they're talking about it too. So we're just going to jump into it. And today's guest is Rodney Schwab, and he is a very fun person to talk to. He is with Professional Alternatives, and they are a recruiting firm that specializes in credit and risk in the LBM space. That I find fascinating because I know we've talked about it before. And Rodney, you're kind of a big deal because you're a regional vice president. So nice that we could capture you for today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on and to chit chat and learn more about LBM and all that's going on there.
Well, I know you're a first-time podcaster, so we're all going to be really kind to you. But we'll call that out just to make you a little bit more uncomfortable. So, Rodney, you and I had one of the best conversations and really in depth about the lack of credit professionals right now in the LBM and construction space, and the lack of talent that's coming in as well, and the challenge in the industry in finding people. Not only, it's a challenge to find people to place with companies, but having companies be able to kind of define what it is they're looking for. So we're going to pick your brain because both sides of the aisle could really use, some help with this and some questions. And I know at least 2 credit managers that have retired in like the last 4 months and then got sucked back out of retirement because companies couldn't find anyone. And I mean, companies were throwing big dollars at these people. One of my friends called and she said, well, I've been retired for about 3 weeks now, and they gave me everything but a pony to come back. And all they were asking for is, can you commit to just 2 years? And she's like, the beauty of it is I'm not in charge of anybody. And, I'm just me and my portfolio. I'm not coaching people. I'm not mentoring. I'm not accountable for, the KPIs and stuff. And she's like, I'm kind of digging this part of going to work. It feels like a part-time job.
Sure.
And so, with all the companies that are courting people out there to come back out of retirement, what are you seeing? Are you experiencing that, or, what do you see in the industry for that credit professional?
Great question. So you see a couple of things. Number one, there is an element of the credit community being underserved. I laugh about this. Someone was telling me how many folks go off to college and say, I'm going to be a credit manager when I grow up. Or you get into accounting and you say, I'm going to take on a big debt for my company and I'm going to collect on it. And I'm going to take on all the responsibilities that come with keeping cash flow going. So what I find happening now in today's market is it's a mixture of things. Number one, really good talent that's committed to staying long term seems to be a problem. Companies will go out and they will bring folks in. They'll put their toe in the water, if you will, on being a credit professional, whether it's at the analyst or manager level. And if it's not for them, they leave and there's a void. And you have this group, though, as you just mentioned, of folks being pulled back in. Those are career professionals that gave their 20, 30, 40, 50 years in some cases of their lives to a company, or maybe more, at a high level of credit operation. And these companies aren't finding that talent anymore for a multitude of reasons, but ones that stand out to me the most is commitment. A lot of folks right now, today's market, they want to see what else is out there. And there is a growing class of folks that are heavy on the accounting finance side, that credit's just not overly appealing, it seems like, to some of them. And then there are those that love it, like yourself, that just dig in and really enjoy the camaraderie of working with sales and customers and internal staff and trying to find problems to, solutions to problems. And so I think what you're finding is there's a group that's exiting out of the job market that has had their time. Companies aren't succession planning like they typically did in the past or should, and therefore they're faced with a void, and so they are pulling some of these folks back to buy more time to either train their teams internally or to go out and try to find talent to come in and fill that void.
Your paycheck is based off of making sure you put the right people in the right companies together. So when you're asking questions, I mean, I know I ask a question to someone, it's like, what are you looking for? Well, someone who can collect money, Thea. It's like, well, right. Wow, narrow that down. And I equate it to when, I was single.
Okay.
Your friends would ask either like, okay, I know you, and my boyfriend or husband has a single, dude friend. Let's do a double date. And you're like, okay, they never worked out. I never had one single blind date that ever worked out. I'm like, do you guys even know me? The fact that we were both single, walked upright, and we're interested, had some interest in going on a date with somebody. That's where it ended. There was really nothing there. There was no big meeting of the minds. So the criteria, it just felt like they just shoved together. We had nothing in common. And it's the same thing with companies and employees. Just because you have an opening and a person is looking doesn't necessarily make it a fit. So so I'm a credit manager and I call you and I'm like, Rodney, these people are going to die if I'm here one more day because I'm going to kill them all. I'm looking to leave. How can you help me?
How can I help you? It's a great question. So first thing we always want to do, identify what it is that's bothering you. What's motivating Thea in this case to want to take a look at the market? Is it compensation? Is it work-life balance? Are those things out of whack? Are the core values of the organization, have they changed from when you came on board to where they are now? Have their hiring processes changed? A lot of the issues that I find in today's market really are just a conversation or two away from being resolved. Meaning, if there is a difference in how your company's doing business, maybe as a credit professional, you can appreciate this. Sales is now running the operation and credit's just approving, and you have no real credit policy in play, and your DSO is climbing, your bad debt doesn't look good. Those are all motivators to make a person want to leave, because distress is something they can't control. It's out of their realm. So when someone comes to me and says, hey, look, I got to get out of here, I can't take it, my first thing is, what's motivating this to happen? What's motivating me and you to even talk in the first place? Because you only call me if you want to talk about the Cowboys, or if you want to talk about, I'm just kidding, Cowboy fans, or if you want to talk about finding another job. And so it's vital that I realize, and when we hang up the phone, that I'm on the exact same page as you as to what's motivating you to want to leave the company. The biggest red flag you find is compensation. When compensation becomes an issue to motivate someone to leave, the thing that I always try to tell candidates, Thea, is you can get that increase and it's going to be great, but whatever your real problem was, it's going to resurface in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paychecks down the line. It's going to come back. So I always tell candidates, putting the compensation side to the side, what's really bothering you? And there's where you try to drill in and try to figure out if it's culture. Culture is a big thing. Work-life balance, since COVID, going back into the office every day, very difficult sell for companies to do now, right? So if I call someone up and say, hey, Thea, I've got an opportunity. You work out of the house 3 times a week. You go in 2, compared to, hey, Thea, you got to go in 5 days a week. There's a little bit of I don't know about that, as opposed to prior to COVID. So my job is to find out what's really motivating you to want to leave. Why are you miserable? Can it be changed? And if it can't, then of course me and you go to the next level, and we begin to Q&A with one another and find out what is the ideal opportunity for you.
COVID really changed everything for everybody. I mean, there is so many things. There were some good parts of it, and I know every time I say that, everybody looks at me cross-eyed. But
right,
there were some things that it taught that, look, we can have a more cohesive blend of personal and professional life, and it can coexist a little bit better than it had in the past. And when you look at it, I've had a business owner, back in January call me and he said, Thea, I'm looking for a credit manager. Can you help me out? And I'm like, well, would you consider a remote person? And he's like, like not in our building. I'm like, well, yes, that is what I mean. Yeah. And he said, well, I've just never thought about it before because it's never, and I said, well, let's explore it. Let's talk to it. You don't have to see me to know what I'm doing. You don't have to see me to know I'm working on the AR. Plus, most of the time I'm going to be sitting in my office making phone calls or texting or emailing or whatever. But my point is, if you want to make it work, you will. Some of the mindset of people, whether it's someone who leads a credit team or owns, is leading the company, is more of that, I got to see you, or that won't work for us. And let me tell you why. It's like, all I'm hearing is you don't want it to work, and you can just say, I'm not comfortable with this. It's not going to happen. It's like, okay, well, that's great, but understand you're limiting your pool here.
No doubt your pool shrinks dramatically. So what happens then when the pool condenses, then you're starting to be faced as a business owner or a hiring manager with other factors that will come into this. That's going to be increased compensation. That's going to be more paid time off. That's going to be more flexibility with the staff and how the person runs it. You're going to have employees looking for more hybrid opportunities. So yeah, you want me in there, you want to pull me in. Okay, here's my list of demands. So we've taken our pool and we've shrunk it to just a little water hole now where there's a few candidates in there that might be a fit. The issue really, in my estimation, is if the candidate is saying up front, I'm really, really looking for something hybrid, I'm not wanting to make this a full-time commitment to come in, and a company tries to sell them on it anyways, you're looking at turnover. You are looking at turnover probably within the first year. That candidate will go to market and will begin contacting other companies. And when they do turn in their notice, you knew I didn't want to work remote. Yeah, but you took the job. I needed a job. See what I'm saying? So,
oh no, that makes total sense. It's like, well, yeah, it's like I have to be employed, but I'm going to make this work until I find what I'm really looking for.
Yep. And it's a lose-lose for both, because the candidate invested time to go out there, the company has invested time to train the person, bring them in, get them acclimated to the staff, and now you have a split. And in my industry, being a recruiter, being a headhunter, that is the worst thing that could possibly happen, is for Thea Dudley, the hiring manager, to call me and say, John Smith or Sally Sue did not work out. Rodney, I thought we had it worked out that they would be okay coming in every day. Trust me when I say that when there are certain non-negotiators with certain folks, we all have them in our life, whether it's personal or business. And that's one that when a hiring manager sees that a person is pushing back on something, and in this case, we're talking about remote work or coming into the office, that's a red flag.
I know you said just leaving for salary is a red flag, but it's a big flag. I mean, if somebody comes to you and says, listen, I'm done, I want to move on, and then they go back to their company, you find them a spot, it's glorious, and they go back to their company and say, hey, here's my resignation, I'm moving on, you guys, it's been great, it's not you, it's me, I'm longing for something different. Where the whole time as an employee that's giving my notice, I'm thinking, it's totally you. You
Sure.
guys are jerks. I told you I felt a certain kind of way. And now, we're just playing nice in the sandbox because you're not supposed to burn a bridge. And they go, well, Thea, would another 20 grand a year sweeten the pot?
Yeah.
So when I come back to you and go, hey, Rodney, guess what? They offered to give me more money. It's like, yeah, okay. And go. So
There you
what do
go.
you do?
Well, let me qualify that really quick. When they come back to give you money, are you already in the midst of a job search and you're comparing it to that?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
you are? Okay, so you're out there and you're looking
Well,
and
because I'm not going to give my notice and say
right.
adios, amigos, and they're like, "Wait a minute, what are you doing?" Well, I'm out the door. Well, are
Good
you going
point.
somewhere? No, I just can't stand you for one more minute.
You have an opportunity to leave and you feel like it's satisfying the problems that you've had with your current employer. You go back in, you say, it's been great, I'm out of here, and they throw money at you. So my suggestion has always been to, and I say this, and I think most recruiters would agree, if not all, counter offers never work. They are
Why
a
not?
they are a band-aid. They are a band-aid to a really bad problem. Some people call it a permanent problem, meaning that we have policy that won't change no matter what. And you've been told this already, so that begin to kind of disenchant you. You're not happy in the role you're in because you were brought in to do one thing and now you're doing something else. You really don't have control, not only of your job function, but of your career anymore. You're kind of just drifting along. You went out, you solicited a new opportunity. It looks great. You come into your current employer and you say, I'm out of here. No, you're not. I've got my checkbook here and I'm going to keep you. And as you used $20,000 as an amount to keep you, it doesn't solve the problem that motivated you to leave in the first place. What was it that got Thea Dudley to say, that guy Rodney Schwab's been calling me and I've been putting him off. I never call him back. I never return any of his email. He's kind of a pariah, but I'm going to call him and hear what he has to say. And we start talking and I get you an opportunity that checks all the boxes. And then you realize that, yeah, money's important, but it's not that important. So when that person comes in and says, I'm going to pay to keep you here, two things to keep in mind. Number one, you immediately go on the not loyal list. Thea decided to step outside of the family. She cheated on us. Come on, you cheated. You went out, you looked at other companies, you decided that what we had here wasn't good enough. So instead of coming to me and saying it was money and coming to me and saying this and this, which you did, just fell on deaf ears, you cheated and you went out and you looked for another opportunity. So now I'm forced to give you what you're worth. Okay, great. But the thing is, the moment the ship gets a little rocky, maybe revenues are down, sales are down. Well, Thea wanted to leave anyway, so go ahead and let her go.
Let's just cut her.
So there is really no upside, in my opinion. And I've got now showing my age, 27 years as a headhunter in the recruiting industry. There's no upside in taking a counteroffer when compensation. There's too many pitfalls. I believe I read in like a Recruiter's Digest one time, 87% of all counter offers end in failure in the first 12 months.
That's some heavy statistic.
Yes.
Well, and so when we're talking about that, as the employee comes to me and they're like, Thea, I'm leaving you, just blah, blah, blah. So should I, as an employer, should I not try to counter? Or it's like, hey, can we work through this? Is it money? Is it, and if I come and say, well, we've talked about it several times and like you said, it fell on deaf ears, you eyeballed me and you're like, patted me on my little head and told me, there, little bear, and sent me to the back. Now, so how as a company can I handle that? Where it's like, well, crap, now I'm losing my credit person. I kind of liked her. She's paying, but I kind of like her. Now what do you do?
Sure. How I would navigate that, and how I've had clients come to me that are friends that have said, hey, Rodney, in this similar situation, I'm losing a great employee. Okay, what's it about? And once we get past the the money, which is, it can always be solved within reason. What you find is that they never really took the time to counsel with that current employee, and it led up to a blow up. So they're scorched earth typically when they leave. So how I would advise a customer to sit down and try to counsel with an employee is to listen. We spend so much time trying to be right, and we overtalk each other, and my way is right. You're just not giving it a chance, Thea. You're not listening. This is what we've done the last 80 years, and this is why we're successful. Okay, great. But you want to keep that person, you got to listen to them. You have to take the time to sit down and listen to their concerns. And if those concerns are viable and you can exact change, you can make the modifications needed. Maybe it's the fact that, hey, I do need a day or two from home. Life happens, things happen, parents, kids, whatever it may be. I need some adjustments. Or it could be anything else other than the fact that just I need your support when it comes to credit decisions that are being made, because I'm tired of being run over by the VP of sales. All these little things that can be resolved if they're talked through. If I'm talking to a hiring manager, I say, sit down, get a pen and paper, and say, tell me what's on your mind and listen. Don't promise anything that you can't keep. But what you promise, say what you mean and mean what you say. If you're going to do that, you're going to do that. And you're going to salvage that employee. They need to feel important and valued. And if they're in there thinking, I'm just venting and you don't really care, it doesn't really matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you give them or what promises are made. Action, putting some hustle, as one person said, hustle behind the muscle, getting in there and really showing someone that you care, you'll go to bat for them. So I think the first thing you do is you listen, you take note, and then you work together, you collaborate with that person to get those things that they're looking for done within reason. And I believe in leadership, if you are a valuable employee, you're the best player on your basketball team. I'm in Dallas. We just traded Luka Doncic. The whole world's going crazy. How could we not accommodate this guy? When you're a best, there's always an accommodation for a superstar or top employee. Valued employees, I guess, is where I'm trying to go with this rant, is that you listen to them and you partner with them. You've got to take off the I'm the boss, and you got to take on the we're in this together. The point and direct no longer happens, and now we're in this together, and you work with them and you build confidence with them and assure them that, hey, we're going to get this fixed. Stick with me.
What I like about the younger generations coming in, especially Gen Z coming in, is they're so much further ahead than like my generation was for knowing what they'll accept and what they won't.
Yes.
They won't stay in a role that just go, well, I got to stay here. What if they're like, I'm just going to make a change because I just cannot do this. I cannot be this stressed out or be this out of kilter. I'm just going to go make a change. And
yes.
It is I wish it was a lesson I would have learned years ago and, trusted that better. But I think there's a lot of people in our generation that maybe could take some real pages out of Gen Z's book and go, you guys are doing it smarter than we did before.
They are an empowered group. When I got into the workforce myself, you're looking at the early 90s. For myself, you get in there and there were rules to follow, and there were things you did and there were things you didn't do. And even if those things you didn't do were probably what you should have done, you just, no, that's a tab. No, you don't do that. This generation coming through is fascinating because they are empowered. They feel a need of, why would I settle? Why would I come to this job and not have quote unquote fun? Why would I not come here and really like the people I work with? And, you look at that group and maybe it's, I love this group because we have the best happy hours. I love this group because we all, have a big think tank and we all get along and we think on the same. They are an empowered generation of people that when you are facing your mortality, maybe the boomer generation, the Gen X generation I come from, you look at it and you think, honestly, God, I wish I was that way. Not just then, even now, they're empowered because they uninhibited. They just look at it like, hey, I'm going to get what knowledge I can here. You guys can let me go whenever I want. And guess what? I guess I can go whenever I want. And they literally mean it, as opposed to those that are like, well, you really can let me go. And well, maybe I don't want to go. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I find it fascinating. I love talking with them about tell me what you think you want to do, what your path is, and they're just like, "Well, I'm kind of enjoying this, but if it gets to the point where it's just starting to suck, I'm out." And I'm thinking, "Wow."
Right. It's a different group, but it's a pretty fun group. And when you find young talent that's committed to growing in a company, there's nothing better, because you can almost look at it and say, in 2 years, you really will be here and here if you stay at it. And a lot of these young folks that are entering the job market, they're wanting experience. The issue, though, in my opinion, Thea, is they don't want it all from you. They don't want it all from that credit manager. They want to go to 4 or 5 different shops and try it out. They want to test drive.
Okay.
As opposed to buy.
But I don't think that's so bad, because that's another challenge that we have in this industry, especially at a lot of our yards, a lot of our dealers, is you may have like one location or 3 locations. And so you don't have a super robust credit team. You might have, one person that is, does everything. And maybe they have a cash app person, or they've got an assistant that they're training to do credit and, process credit apps and all of that. But it's not a super robust group. And so when somebody new comes in, you're seeing this person is coming on board now. I've got to try to teach them as much as I can, but it's like, I don't want you to be like me. I want you to be better than me. I don't want you to have to learn the same way that I did, where it was like waterboarding. It's like nobody showed you anything. You just got waterboarded until you got it.
Waterboarding.
And yep. I think part of it, when you talk about what is that company looking for? Is that company, open to this person learning? Are they open to sending them to some, NACM or yep. Credit Management Association meetings? It's like, are you willing to invest in them to get to get that?
Great scenario. Great question. So one of the things I try to do when I'm qualifying an order is I understand as a recruiter that the technical part of the job, the credit, the collections, the AR, the cash posting, whatever it may be, is important. But we live in a world now where intangible skills are so vital. That's the communication side. That's the quote unquote thinking out of the box side. That's someone who imagines things differently and looks at things differently and isn't afraid to come up to you and say, hey, Thea, I see how we're doing things, and I want to run something by you and see if this makes sense, if it might make how we post cash differently, or all the way to how our team communicates and how we can share information. And so when I present candidates today, it used to be the more years of experience, that person's getting the job. They're the ones that's got all the knowledge. We're just going to give it to them so I don't have to deal with it, and that person just walks away. But in the world that we're in now, I find that companies that I recruit for, and we were to use a scale of 0 to 100, we would say 60% of it's going to be on the intangibles. How do they present? That could be credit data to you. Maybe they're an analyst and they're presenting data to you. How do they present? How do they communicate? What's their negotiation skills like? How do they de-escalate? How do they bring calm to an unsettling situation? None of that has anything to do with collecting a debt, reconciling, researching, doing a debit or a credit. None of that. Those are all skill, though, that can overlap, that will cross into that type of work. You can teach someone to be a credit professional. I'm not saying hire someone with no experience, but I'm saying,
hey, I like hiring people with no experience. I don't have to undo any damage from anybody else.
Good point. And I
And
I wish my
usually they're
clients
pretty
were that
cool.
way. I wish my clients said, Rodney, they have no experience, but my folks will want experience, and that's great. But the thing I always try to caution them on is that, hey, a lot of experience is good, but keep in mind, these are people, they're dealing with people, they're dealing with stressed out customers, sales folks, internal staffs. We all have our own problems. If you can find a problem solver as opposed to a problem creator, if you can find someone who can speak well, and again, I can't emphasize this enough, and that is someone who has a sense of presence, someone who can speak not just to, you know, their manager, their director, or whatever, but someone who has a business sense about them, a level of maturity, if you will. Again, an intangible that you can't grade on a resume because it's not something that's going to be asked of. You know, how much credit did you approve? How big was your AR? What was your DSO? Where'd your bad debt get to? This is something that is just inherently characteristic of that person. I really try to push the customer to look at that, and I take it a step forward on that, Thea, and that is when I do my references, I would suggest 80% of my reference is going to be based on communication skills, how they handle and solve problems and de-escalate issues, and only 20% is going to be on the actual technical job. Because the interviewer, you're the client, you can talk to the new person coming in and ask them all the credit questions you want. They should be able to answer them. But all that other information that I'm getting from a third party and sharing with you, I think it's valuable that you go, wow, this is a cornerstone person here I can build my team around.
If you had to give one piece of advice to companies who are looking to hire, what would it be?
Your best candidate is not always going to be the one with the most experience. Your best candidate is not going to be the one that has 20 years of lumber, concrete, electrical distribution, whatever your industry is. That's not always the best candidate. Critical thinking is vital. Strong communication skills are really, really vital. And I think most importantly, someone who takes ownership, meaning that, and that's used a lot, I get it, but if I were to sit down and tell someone, if I'm really looking to hire the right person, I need someone, and especially in this world, not the ownership piece is important, but also let me just kind of dovetailed into me here, someone who's really strong with ERPs, with all the implementations that are taking place. I've noticed that a lot of old school credit folks, they're not comfortable with, yeah, we're implementing SAP, and then the whole credit process crashes. So someone who is technology or technically savvy, critical thinker, those are really important. Yes, the experience is invaluable, but don't pigeonhole yourself on it. Has to be industry based. It has to be commercial credit based, of course, and it has to be someone that's dealt with customers and whatever your AR is. But that would be my biggest piece of advice, would be that let's not base it on the amount of years in the industry. Let's base it on other things.
I don't think we can add anything else to that. I think that was very well said.
Thank you very much. I have enjoyed this so much. My first podcast. I'm still here. I haven't
you did really
vanished.
Good.
And I'm really grateful that you gave me an opportunity to visit with you. And I love talking about credit, especially when I talk to someone who knows a lot more about it than me.
Well, I might be able to collect your money. Sometimes I don't always agree with some of the parameters companies put out there. So sure. I'm glad that you have to put up with all that. So Rodney, if someone wants to get a hold of you, how do they?
Perfect. So my company, Professional Alternatives, you got www.proalt.com is our website. Always can call me. I am like a doctor. Unfortunately, I am never shut the phone off. You can always reach me by cell. 972-232-2488. You can reach me, of course. You can email me, rschwab@proalt.com. I am all over LinkedIn and social media like any headhunter would be. I take all invites. especially in the credit community, and I'm always open to engage and just talk. I like talking about credit and staffing. It's what we've done since 1998 here in Dallas and our Houston location, and we are taking this thing abroad into the national market, so we're excited. Say abroad, the national market.
Like, where are you going, to Spain?
Get me some time, and I might end up in Canada and other places. But no, yes, we're taking this thing a little bit bigger than just the state of Texas, and we're excited to do so. So reach me. I'm here, and I'll talk to anybody. Always enjoy it.
Well, Rodney, thank you for sharing, some of the things that can kind of help move our community forward. I know credit people are always asking questions. Companies that are looking for credit people are always asking questions. I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us.
You bet. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.